It is the end of an era for mainstream comics as Diamond Comic Distribution has announced that they are filing for bankruptcy in a move that will definitely have consequences within the mainstream comic book industry.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast and consider becoming a channel member. Like I said at the outset, Diamond Comic Distributors, one of the largest and most sought after distribution networks for mainstream comic books, has filed for bankruptcy. A lot of people are blaming the pandemic, some are blaming Marvel Entertainment for ceasing to use them a couple of years ago. However, I think it is a lot of bad decisions made by the mainstream comic book industry as well as Diamond Distributors. This is from bleedingfool.com. Diamond Comic Distributors, once the titan of comic book distribution, has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, making a seismic shift in the comic book industry. This development comes as no surprise to industry insiders who have been watching the slow decline of traditional comic book sales since even before the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the market in 2020. The bankruptcy filing is likely a direct result of the splintering that occurred when Diamond temporarily shut down operations during the early days of the pandemic. This closure forced major publishers like DC Comics and Marvel to seek alternative distribution methods, ultimately leading to a permanent shift away from Diamond's near monopoly on comic distribution. As part of its restructuring efforts, Diamond has secured a $39 million stalking horse bid from Universal Distribution for its Alliance Game Distributors division. The company has also obtained $40 million in debtor-in-possession financing from their bank, JP Morgan Chase, to help Diamond get through the reorganization and bankruptcy process. Universal Distribution picking up Alliance is a critical element of their restructuring strategy. Obviously, Universal can see Diamond's potential, and it will hopefully facilitate a smoother transition during the bankruptcy progress. The roots of Diamond's downfall can be traced back to March 2020 when comic book sales plummeted due to widespread store closures and economic uncertainty. The industry's reliance on a single distributor became glaringly apparent, prompting publishers to diversify their distribution channels. DC Comics was the first to cut ties with Diamond in June 2020, setting off a chain reaction that would ultimately lead to Diamond losing 84% of its comics periodical businesses by 2023. Despite a brief resurgence in comic book sales during the pandemic, with overall sales reaching a record 1.28 billion in 2020, the industry has struggled to maintain any momentum. The years since have seen a decline in traditional American comic book sales, even as manga has experienced a significant growth. The closure of hundreds of comic book stores between 2020 and 2024 has further exacerbated the challenges faced by publishers and distributors alike. Diamond's recent troubles have been compounded by distribution delays and quality control issues. The abrupt closure of its Plattsburgh distribution center in December 2024 led to widespread delays and damaged products, frustrating retailers and readers. These operational challenges, coupled with the loss of major publishers, have left Diamond in a precarious position. While much of the mainstream comic book industry press has maintained that the comic book industry is in a healthy place, blaming ongoing struggles on the after effects of the pandemic, when they had us all illegally locked in our homes and we could only go out for, toilet paper when it was available, the reality appears more grim. The industry continues to face significant changes in adapting to changing consumer habits and distribution models, and the two biggest publishers have been alienating readers for the past several years by seemingly focusing on identity politics as much as they do entertaining storytelling. I would say way more. As Diamond Comic Distributors enters bankruptcy proceedings, the future of the comic book distribution remains uncertain. The company's restructuring efforts and potential sale of its various divisions may reshape the landscape of comic book and collectibles distribution. The success of Diamond's reorganization will depend on several factors, including the response from creditors, the effectiveness of the restructuring plan, and the competitive landscape post-bankruptcy. The company's ability to attract additional investment or bidders will be crucial if they are to have any future viability. For an industry built on the adventures of superheroes, the greatest challenge now lies in navigating the real-world obstacles of a rapidly evolving market. If I could put in my opinion, I have three things I've noticed come out of this bankruptcy story. Number one, monopolies are always a bad thing. Now, it is true that there were other distribution companies that would get comic books to comic book stores and even to customers, but Diamond was the biggest. And I even remember long before Marvel and DC and other comic book companies started to go woke, people were complaining about Diamond, about their tyrannical practices and their high prices. And for one thing, one of the things that Diamond Comic Distributions, and this isn't even totally their fault, but Free Comic Day, where you can go in and the comic book stores will have a collection of comic books that you can just grab. Some may limit the amount you can take. The lowest limit I ever encountered was 5 comics. They said, "Here's Free Comic Book Day. You can have 5 free comics," and they had a slew of them out. But what you don't know about Free Comic Book Day is that the comic book stores still take a hit on those free comics. That's why, say you go to a comic book convention and you'll see them in the dollar bin, and you're like, wait, I thought this was a free comic day issue. It's because they're trying to recoup that loss. And part of that is from the distribution that the comic book companies had to pay to Diamond. That was one thing. A monopoly is never a good thing. One company should not have full control of the market. And like I said, yeah, there were a couple of smaller ones out. It was bound to burst. That bubble that Diamond was controlling was bound to burst. Number two, the manga industry is saving comic book stores. If you would go into a comic book store and they had no manga on the stands, they were gone. And I hate to say it, but one of my favorite comic book stores of all time, I loved their archive section. I love their new releases. I love the pull system they had. They wouldn't sell manga unless it was like really comic book related. So they might sell My Hero Academia or Shy or something like that, but they refused to sell popular titles like Dragon Ball Super or Naruto or Solo Leveling, which I know Solo Leveling is actually a manhwa, but you get my point. And believe it or not, that's actually a small market in manga. Right now, isekais and sort of dark fantasies and romance are the top sellers, as well as action comedies like Spy X Family. But those comic book stores are the ones that close down. Now that I live in the state of Arizona and I visit different comic book shops, their manga sections have grown just since I've been living here, which has been over the course of 2 years. There's a comic book store not far from me, and when we being me and my super cute wife, when we started going there, they only had manga on this small shelf, and they had multiple titles, best-selling ones or just superhero ones. They had multiple, but it was still a small shelf. Last time I went, which was probably about a month ago, right? They had like 3 shelves in the middle of the store just packed with manga stuff. And I have a feeling next time I go, that is only going to get bigger and bigger. It's going to be huge because right now, Japan doesn't care about identity politics or woke messaging or DEI or ESG. Now, some American infiltrators like BlackRock, which is basically just a James Bond villain company at this point, they're trying to buy in and using their proxy entertainment companies like Sony to buy into the manga space. And it's already kind of negatively affecting Square Enix, right? We've seen them collapse because of everything that's going on. Fortunately, though, the manga artists and the manga writers, they're not wimps like the comic book writers and artists here in the United States, and they're pushing back against what they're calling Western political correctness. And I think that's an appropriate name. The third thing that I'm taking away from this is indie comics is going to soar. We're seeing this with iconic comics, with the Rippaverse, and yes, even Arkhaven comics. Now, there are some who are still kind of stuck in the 2016 era of Indiegogo and Kickstarter reigning supreme. I think that's going to go away. I think we're going to see more comic book creators handle their own distribution in-house, like what the Rippaverse and Big Man Comics does, or they're going to keep doing it solo, kind of like what Iconic Comics does. Now, I do think other organizations like Backer Kit and whatnot that help indie creators get their stuff out, and great. Like I said, we don't need a monopoly where one company is in control over it. We need a bunch. We need a free market of ideas where we can pick and choose the ones we like based on our price point and based on the quality of their service. All that to say, this whole Diamond comic distribution bankruptcy has led us to these 3 conclusions. Monopolies are bad. manga sales are going to soar, and indie comics is going to explode. Honestly, think these three key factors are going to come into play, whether it be right now or in the future. Now, I really feel bad for all the people who work for Diamond distributors, and I hope that they are able to find employment elsewhere. But Diamond should have learned from the scam-demic that anything can go wrong at any time. If you liked that video, be sure to give it a like, share it out to all your friends, leave me a comment, tell what you think, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member. If you would be so kind, head on over to my website, StudioJakeMedia.com. It has no ads and sign up is free. You just have to put in your email address, or you can subscribe through the WordPress app. I post an article a day, and it's usually about a popular film, sometimes unpopular films, but also I talk about novels, anime, television, and so much more. So head on over there. You're not going to want to miss it. If you want to support the work that I do, click on the link to my locals community. It's in the description of the video. You can sign up for a monthly subscription, or you can send my articles tips, and I have exclusive articles published there as well as my short stories. Speaking of stories, I hope you'll check out one or all four of my novels. I've got Cacophony, A Tale of Faith and Fear. It's a supernatural book with paranormal themes about a group of demons who are trying to take over a small town in Texas and the angels sent to stop them. I also have my fantasy series, The Seven Royals. Book 1 is All Good Things. Book 2 is Breaking the Stars. It is a sword and sorcery tale about your favorite fairy tale characters who have to come together to stop a dark army from conquering their lands. Book 3 is on its way, and I'll have an announcement about it very soon. Last but not least, I have my latest novella, Blessed Child. It follows an elf princess who discovers she's pregnant with a human child, sending the elf kingdom into chaos. Her father, the king of the elves, hires a knight to protect her, and he is sort of disgraced, but he's on the path to redemption, and he and the princess form an unlikely friendship. You're not going to want to miss it. Get one or all four at Amazon.com and leave me a 5-star review. It really helps out small indie creators like myself. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.